Hello, hi, welcome once again to M5's English language learning program, Let's Speak English. I'm Gav Duncan and I'm here on your TV to help you learn English. Now, are you sitting comfortably? Yes? Good! And are you ready for today's lesson? Yes? Good! Okay, well, let's learn English together. Friday, people! It's Friday once again. The cyclical roll of week upon week has rolled about on the floor for 7 days, and that means that this morning, but so incredibly early this morning, so early that not even the postman and the milkman would have seen it. Yes, that early. So early that probably the only people who saw it were the owl people. But seeing as we don't know any owl people, that's a bit of a dead end, isn't it? I mean, the only hybrid people that I know are the mole people. I mean, I know that it's only a long shot, but we could always ask one of them. Hang on. Let's find one to ask. Look! Over there! Is that a mole man? No, that's not a mole man, is it? No, far too many, well, arms? Legs? Tentacles. Yes, too many tentacles. You know, the sort of leg things that you find on octopuses and squids. Things like that. And on space monsters too, obviously. So, are there no mole men about the place we can ask? All right, well, we're not really making any progress, are we? I tell you what, let's just take it as read that early this morning, just after midnight last night, Thursday changed places with Friday. Thursday went home to get some rest, and Friday turned up and clocked in. So, here we all are, ready to get Friday's session of this mega revision dealt with, so that we can start thinking about what we're going to do later on tonight when Friday transforms into Friday. All right, no time to waste, as Elvis the Pelvis told us all the other day. Let's get it on. Okay, so what was the last thing that we looked at yesterday? Ah, yes, of course. We were thinking about have and have got, weren't we? Yes, we were thinking about the fact that when we want to ask a question in the present simple, we have to use the services of an auxiliary verb, a helping verb. Just as you can have an auxiliary engine on a boat, for example. Think about the yachts you see at Bolaton. The sailing boats there are powered by sail. They're sailing boats. They have sails which catch the wind so that they can move through the water. But most of these sailing boats also have a helping engine too, an auxiliary engine, an engine or a motor that's there too, just in case there's no wind and the boat can't move. Also, think about what happens when the boat wants to come into port and park. With a maneuver like that, when someone is trying to park a boat next to lots of other boats, that's not the sort of precise maneuver that you can do using sails and the wind. It'd take too long and it'd be very dangerous for the other boats. So, these sailing boats, they often have an auxiliary engine or motor, a petrol engine or electric motor to help them when they can't use the wind. And just like that engine or motor that they use to help them, the present simple tense uses an auxiliary verb, the verb to do, to help make negatives and ask questions. Okay, but as we saw and as we know, when we're talking about possession, we often use have got as well as have. Now, as we saw last lesson, when we use have got, then we don't need the auxiliary verb to do to ask questions in the present simple. But if we decide to use have to talk about possession, what then? Well, if we're using have, not have got, then we do need the auxiliary verb when we ask questions. So what does this mean? Well, All this means is that we can say the same thing or ask the same question, but in two different ways. If we're using have got, then, as we saw last lesson, we form questions in the present simple by starting with the correctly conjugated form of the verb to have, either have for the first person singular form, I, the second person singular form, you, and all the plural forms, we, you, and they, or has for the third person singular form, he, she, and it. We then follow the correctly conjugated form of the verb have or has with the subject or subject pronoun. I, he, Mr. T, Johnny Weissmuller, Wonder Woman, the cast of Dallas, whatever, and follow the subject or subject pronoun with got, like this. Have I got anything in my teeth? Has he got a car or a bike? Have we got time to stop for beer? What kind of car has she got? Okay, but when we're using have, not have got, then if we want to ask a question, we need the auxiliary verb to do. So, how do we ask a question with have? Well, it's very simple. It's just the same as when we ask questions using other verbs in the present simple. As we all remember, when we form positive statements, we start with a subject. I, you, the cast of the A-Team, Captain Banana, whoever. Then follow with a verb correctly conjugated. When we want to ask a question in the present simple, however, we have to use the auxiliary verb to do. We start with either do or does, depending on which subject we're using, and then we follow with the subject. After the subject, we have the main verb, and the main verb remains in the infinitive. We conjugated the auxiliary verb. We decided to use the correct form, either do if we're asking a question about the first person singular, the second person singular, or any of the plural subject forms, or does if we're asking a question about the third person singular, a question where the subject is he, she, or it. So, if we're asking a question using have instead of have got, then we start with do or does. Follow the auxiliary verb with the subject, and then follow the subject with have. And have, which is the main verb, doesn't change. Have stays in the infinitive. We don't have to worry about changing have to has if we're asking a question where the subject is he, she, or it. No. We conjugate the auxiliary verb. We decided at the beginning if we have to use do or does. The main verb, the verb which follows the subject, in this case have, stays in the infinitive. So, let's recap. All we have to do is remember that if we're using have got and we want to ask a question in the present simple, then we don't need the auxiliary verb to do. If, on the other hand, however, we're using the verb to have without got, then when we ask a question in the present simple, we have to use the auxiliary verb to do. Have I got, or do I have? Have you got, or do you have? Has he, she, it got, or does he, she, it have? Have we got, or do we have? Have you got, or do you have? Have they got, or do they have? All right. Now, we've looked at the question and how we have two different forms in the present simple depending on whether we're using have or have got. So, what about the negative? What happens there? Well, what do we normally do to make the negative in the present simple? Yes, that's right. We have to add the adverb not, don't we? Yes. Well, all right. But what's going to happen here? Well, just as with the question form, it depends on whether we're using have got or just have. Let's have a look at what we have to do with have got first, shall we? Well, let's start with a positive sentence using have got. I've got a lovely bunch of coconuts. All right, fine. Well, what can we see in that sentence? Well, we can see that I've abbreviated I have got to I've got. That's nothing special though, is it? No, we all prefer the shortened, the abbreviated version. Okay, so it's a positive sentence, and as usual, we start with the subject, I. Then we add the verb have got, and then we get the rest of the sentence, the object of a sentence, a lovely bunch of coconuts. Okay, now, if we want to make this positive sentence negative, what do we have to do? Yes, we have to add not. And where do we stick it? Yes, right again, Major Mango. The adverb not, the thing that makes the sentence negative comes after the verb, which means that it comes after have. It comes in between have and got. Have got changes to have not got. Simple. I haven't got a lovely bunch of coconuts. Now, similar to what we did there, turn these other positive sentences into negative sentences. You've got a very nice smile. He's got a horrible haircut. She's got a new car. It's got a funny smell. We've got a small flat. You've got a big car. All right, so what did you get? Where do we put the adverb not? Yes, that's right. Not goes after have and before got. Not goes in between have and got. Simple. So, what do the negative sentences look like? You haven't got a very nice smile. He hasn't got a horrible haircut. She hasn't got a new car. It hasn't got a funny smell. We haven't got a small flat. You haven't got a big car. Okay, well, that was simple, wasn't it? Yes. Now, we've got time for one last thing before it's time for me to leave you to start preparing for this evening. And that last thing is for us to quickly run over what we did with have and have got in the present simple. Okay, so we know that we normally use have got instead of have. Fine. So if we want to use have got in the present simple, we know what we have to do. If we're making a positive sentence, then we start with the subject and follow with the correct form of the verb, either have got, or if the subject is the third person singular, then has got. If we're making a negative sentence, then we start with the subject and then follow the subject with the correct form of have, either have, or if the subject is the third person singular, then has. Now we add the adverb not to make it negative, and then we follow with got. The adverb not goes after have and before got. It goes between have and got. To ask a question, we start with have or has, if the subject is the third person singular, then follow with the subject and then got. If we're following the same pattern using the verb to have, then for positive present simple sentences, we start with the subject, follow with have or has, if the subject is the third person singular, and then finish with the object. If the sentence is negative, we start with the subject and then follow with do or does, depending on the subject. We add not after do or does to get either don't or doesn't, and then follow that with have. And here, as we all remember, have, the main verb, stays in the infinitive. It's the auxiliary verb which changes, not the main verb. For questions, we start with do or does, depending on the subject, and follow with the subject and then add have. Again, here, have, the main verb, doesn't change. We conjugate the auxiliary verb. It's either do, or if it changes to does, but we leave the main verb, have, in the infinitive. And we're done for the day. Yes, people, it's true. This session, the last session of the week, the standard working week, that is, but you all knew that anyway, didn't you? Yes, of course you did. Anyway, the first week of the latest mega revision is coming to a close. The 555th lesson. Yes, that's today's number. This is lesson 555. What about that? Congratulations, well done all of you. All right, enough of my psychobabble. I'm off. Coffee. And as for you lot, well, chores, lizards, llamas, giraffes, gibbons. And when all your chores are finished and the animals are happy, then hit the shower, get in, get wet, get clean, get out, get dried, and then, before you sort your hair out and put your war paint on, make a preemptive strike on your armpits. Hit them with your rhythm stick. No, that doesn't make any sense. Hit them with some antiperspirant. Yes, blast or wipe that antiperspirant onto your armpits and ensure that at the party, the Friday night festival, that it's not you who smells like a homeless dinosaur's armpits. Let that sign of dishonor fall to someone else. You are a god of English, and it's not fitting that you should smell. You're better than that. All right, people, I'm off. Have a wonderful weekend, have fun, and I'll see you all on Monday. See you later. www.mediaclick.hu. Bye!